This is the Property Secrets Podcast, presenting respected author, commentator and speaker Darren Standish, providing insights into the hidden secrets of real estate and building wealth through property.
Hi, welcome to this week's edition of Property Secrets, the show where we speak to insiders from around the country to get an insider's guide to buying, selling and investing in property. My guest today is, I'm honoured to have this guest today because, it's something I'm really interested in. I want to learn a lot more about. So our guest today is Mylius from Cape Bacchus Buyers Advocates. And so she's got a lot of experience on, the world of getting out there and wheeling and dealing with agents, trying to really get the best price for her clients. So firstly, thanks for joining me today, Amy. I really appreciate you joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And I suppose if you can just give us a bit of an idea of your background, how did you end up, in the world of, being a buyer's advocate or a buyer's agent?
So I started out with a commerce arts degree, and I'm pretty sure you've got a commerce degree as well. I think we studied very similar things. So I had an economics major, and when I finished university, I started working with the state government in the economics department, and I did enjoy it. I thought it was very interesting, but I felt like I was working there because I studied it and because I felt like I owed myself a chance of getting into an industry where I'd spent 6 years and a lot of money studying. So I did that for a little while, and then I realised that it's something I wasn't necessarily passionate about. And it's something I didn't get home and think, I want to keep reading and researching about it. And I didn't think about it on weekends. And I was really jealous of friends I had who worked in property. And it got to the point where I thought, I've got to find a job which I'm really interested in doing and I can see myself doing for the long term. So I got out of the state government and I got my foot in the door in property and leasing, so residential leasing. And I did enjoy that for a little while, but it was really my way of trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I started a master's in property, thinking perhaps I wanted to do commercial property, realised that wasn't necessarily what I was interested in as well. And then ultimately had an opportunity to work as a trainee buyer's advocate for a company called Empower Wealth, and started out there and realised that was something that I just absolutely loved. And since then, started working with Cape Bacchus, who used to work at Empower Wealth as well. And we just absolutely love what we do. And we're very lucky. We're a very small boutique company in Melbourne. And I just couldn't think of doing anything else now.
Oh, that sounds like an amazing journey. And obviously that's the great thing. I think nowadays people have to sort of switch professions and you don't really know whether you like what you do until you give it a go. And I've had the same sort of journey over my lifetime, I suppose. I've sort of just evolved. But the thing is you can still take those skills you've built from your previous job and sort of transfer that into your new job, I suppose. So I sort of haven't found it as wasted, I suppose, from my perspective. But I suppose, can you explain to us I'm from Adelaide, obviously from Melbourne. So in other states in Australia, it's probably more likely for people to know what a buyer's agent or a buyer's advocate is. Can you give us, it sounds like basically what do you just ring up people and put in an offer and then sign the contract, or what is it you actually do?
We've got a range of services, so it can be as simple as assess, appraise and negotiate. That's when clients bring us the property. They've selected it themselves, and it could be either an investment property or an owner-occupied property. And then we go through the process of assessing the value, doing a full comparable sales analysis, chatting to the agent, and then going through the negotiation process. So that could be buying an off-market, prior to auction, going to auction. It's essentially just securing the property. But it can range all the way through to us actually doing every part of the property process. So that includes the searching, the analysing. It's an unlimited process until we find the right property. And unlike other buyers advocates, I think we're one of the only people who do this as well. We have a more mentored program where investors and owner occupiers come to us with the brief and we send them out on the journey and educate them throughout the process. And they do the initial inspections based on a shortlist that we give them. And then we keep going until we find the right property as well. So that includes everything from defining the brief and creating the strategy at the start, which is sometimes something that can be quite a dynamic process, or sometimes people really know exactly what they want, all the way through to settlement. And that can include property management for investors as well. And we source and help find the right property manager for them.
Okay, so it sounds like you're not So it's not just for people that are short on time and they just haven't got time to shop around for a property. You're actually creating value for the client that basically gets them a better deal than they otherwise would, or finds them property that may not otherwise property. What's I suppose what is it you actually do that creates that extra value for the clients? What are the skills and knowledge you bring that allows them to get a better deal? I suppose you can give us, if we were trying to work out, how do we go out and do it ourselves? Is it something that you just need years of knowledge and experience, or if you give us some tips on the best way to go out there and negotiate the best deals or find those properties?
Yeah, yes and no. So with any sort of property, whether it's buying a home or buying an investment, there's a lot of research and time that goes into it. And for some, buying a property is not necessarily a hard thing to do, but buying the right property and for the right price, that can be something where we can really value add. So we really value our agent relationships, and that's something that a lot of buyers find very difficult to get that cut through there because they don't have the relationship with the agent. And unfortunately, the real estate industry is it's an industry where there's not very much transparency. So the agents hold a lot of the information, a lot of the power, and buyers can sometimes struggle to cut through the white lies that can sometimes be told by agents as well. So a lot of agents we deal with, they know that we don't necessarily play games. We've got buyers who are qualified, buyers who are ready to go, buyers who are realistic and educated. So agents like to deal with us because they know that they're going to have a fairly simple process. We buy about 25% of our properties off market. So those are properties that will never actually ever hit the market. So they won't go online. The agent might send it out to their database. They might send it out to just some local buyers advocates, or we're also in a fortunate position where some agents will only send it to us and we'll have an exclusive opportunity to look at that property without competition.
So it sounds like without that insider sort of knowledge and experience, then you sort of don't even get the opportunity. Even if you're the greatest negotiator in the world, if you're not in there with a chance to negotiate, then you're outside of the system, really. So you guys have sort of, you're not friends, I suppose. You built those relationships over time, so that then they'll know straight away to talk to you. And I suppose from the agent's perspective, what they're doing is they're saving themselves a lot of hassle, really, because they're dealing with someone that knows what they're talking about. They're not going to waste their time. That I'm assuming then you've qualified your clients as far as making sure they know how much money they've got to spend and what property they're looking for. So making the process a lot more efficient for the agent means they're more likely to rather sell a property to you than somebody else, because they know you're not going to waste their time, and that's generally why they'd go back to the owner. And
yeah, quite often when a property is sold off market, it's often for a reason, and that's often because the vendor has a reason to sell it off market. Perhaps their personal situation has led them to sorry, I've just got a cat here. I'm going to take him off the desk. But perhaps their personal situation has led them to, perhaps they've bought and they need to settle in a certain time frame. Perhaps they're going through some personal difficulties, or perhaps they need a quiet sale because they don't want people to know about it. In those situations, then dealing with an advocate can be very advantageous, because they want something that's simple, they want something that's quiet, and they want something that's not too much hassle. So it's not always just the agent wanting an easy, quick deal. It can be the vendor as well, and that's where an advocate can really add value as well.
So it seems like you make the whole process so much easier for clients, as far as just they basically get you to go out and do the running around for them, but also they get opportunities that they wouldn't otherwise get themselves, regardless of whether they have lots of free time. So obviously I'm assuming you charge a fee for whatever you do. So how does that sort of work? How do you charge it based on is it a set fee, or is it a commission, or is it some sort of bonusy thing? And I'm interested to see how that works.
Yeah, we just do a flat fee. So we don't think that a commission rate is the right incentive for a buyer's advocate. We're obviously trying to work for the buyer and get the lowest price that we can. And from our perspective, we put the same amount of effort and time into a $500,000 property or a $3 million property. So we just charge a set rate, and there's no extra hidden fees or costs. We charge 50% up front and 50% once we purchase. And that fee can range depending on how much input the client wants to have as well. So the more they're on the ground and the more they're involved, the less a fee it is as well. So it can range from anything from just assess the price to negotiate, to the full service where we do absolutely everything.
Okay. And so And I can imagine then, if you know exactly what it's going to cost up front, you can sort of say, hey, well, firstly, I'm going to save myself a huge amount of time, and then I'm going to get deals that I otherwise wouldn't have get. And then I get to leverage off your experience. And I'm sure you guys are, really good at negotiating and making sure you're getting the best deals. So what, for people that don't have access to your, skills and knowledge, if they're in another state in Australia or not, maybe not even in Australia, if they were getting out, they may never become a part of the inside group and get these deals available. But if they're out trying to wheel and deal and try and get the best deal, is there maybe the top 3 tips you suggest of, the best way to negotiate to get the lowest price when they're buying?
So I think that negotiation, people need to realise that it's always trying to create some kind of win-win scenario. So negotiating is not pushing the other party until the point they cave, because if they don't feel like they've achieved something in that situation, you can really jeopardise your negotiating power. So with one of my tips is to not be so aggressive that you put either the agent off or the vendor off from dealing with you, because we've seen situations where the agent has sold it to another party, and this is not when we've been involved, but they've sold it to another party because they just didn't want to deal with that other buyer who was giving them grief, giving them a hard time, and really offending them and offending the vendor in the process as well. So you need to be careful to not get people offside when you're negotiating. Secondly, I always think that buyers need to be very, very prepared when they go into a negotiation. So they need to demonstrate to the agent that they know their values, and that might include rattling off some comparable sales, but it also means that you're levelling the negotiation field as well, and the playing field, and the agent feels like they're talking to someone who knows what they're talking about, and they'll be less inclined to try and, I guess, take advantage of them. And finally, it's also being prepared in terms of making sure the agent knows that you're a qualified buyer. So making sure that the agent knows that you're pre-approved, that you've got your finance sorted, that you're in a position to buy, that you're in a position to be able to know what settlement you want, and that you're essentially ready to go. Saying things like, oh, I'm just looking around at the moment, or I'm not really in a hurry, that's not going to give the agent a huge amount of incentive to want to deal with you when they've got 5 other buyers that they're speaking to who they know are ready to go and ready to buy, because they will need to prioritise their time in who they deal with.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And I know from my experience dealing with clients that, they're out there talking to agents saying, oh yeah, I'm really interested in this property, or maybe not even. Sometimes people go to an open inspection and they look around, they want to play the poker face type thing. I don't want to say anything. They don't want to be open and honest with the agent because they think, oh, I don't want to let them know I'm really interested. And then before you know it, they call the agent a week later and the property's been sold. And the agent hasn't even known that they wanted to buy the property because they thought, oh, I'll play it cool. Whereas, sometimes it makes sense to be honest and open with the agent, because then that, like you said, it creates that trust and credibility. And, I'm sure you guys get that straight away because you're professional and stuff. But yeah, what sort of ways, is that what you advise? Just to be as honest as you can?
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain limit where you can reach with your honesty, because agents, if it's an owner-occupier home and you've just told them you're absolutely in love with it, that can potentially compromise your negotiating power. But always let the agent know that you're interested if you are keen on a property, because as you said, they might sell that property and they're not going to call back every single person that came through the door. They're going to call back people who said, yes, give me a contract. Yes, I'm interested. And we've seen it happen time and time again where people have called up and the property is sold. It also means that if the property is selling prior to auction, the agent might only have a very short time frame where they can contact buyers back as well. So sometimes they'll say it's a 24-hour time frame, and you want to be told about that as soon as possible, because if you need to do all of your due diligence, including your contract review and getting your building inspection done, you need to be the first person to know about that. Sometimes as well, and this is very rarely the case, but if an owner-occupier is buying a house and they really, really love it, and you've got a really emotional vendor as well, and you can somehow convey through the owner that you do love the property and you can see yourself living in and it's a beautiful home, sometimes that will help incline the vendor to want to favour you as well, rather than someone who's, maybe perhaps an investor or perhaps is just buying the home and doesn't have any emotional attachment as well. So there's a lot of different tips and tricks, but in the end, it's always good to let the agent know that you do have interest and you want to be kept updated.
Oh, fantastic. And yeah, obviously you've given us huge amounts of, value today, and I really appreciate your time, I suppose. But I better get back to the name of the show, and obviously it's called Property Secrets. Is there something, I'm sure you've gone through quite a lot of secrets now, things that we need to consider. Is there one thing that you sort of see when you see other people out there buying properties that that they could, probably got a better deal, or they could have done something slightly different to give themselves a better outcome? Is there, from the insider's perspective, there's one tip we can take away, and it's really going to, better opportunities going down the track? So, what would you suggest is our property secret, I suppose?
It's going to be a really boring secret, and it's going to be one that probably gets drilled into people all the time, but it's being really, really, really prepared. And when you're prepared, when you've got everything ready, when you've got a great conveyancer on your team, when you've got a building inspector, when you've got a team that can work very quickly for you, when you're prepared and educated so you know exactly what you're looking for, what your values are, and what position you are in terms of settlement and price and so forth, your borrowing capacity, it means that when a good opportunity comes up, you're ready to go straight away. So if an off-market comes up, or if a property goes to auction and it's selling prior and you need to make a decision really quickly, those are the situations where you can often get an edge because you're in a position to move quickly. And sometimes an agent or vendor will value that above and beyond perhaps waiting for auction and getting a strong price. So preparation, it's not exciting, but it's very, very important.
Yeah, and I'm sure it sounds like, from the way you obviously sound really professional in the way you guys do it, and so that's probably the key for you guys, really understanding what your clients want, and then when you get out there and you see an opportunity, you can just take advantage of it straight away because you've done all the hard work up front, I suppose. That's probably the key, I imagine.
We have, and sometimes we have clients who will see the right property for them in the first week, and we'll have everything ready to go, but they might not be in an emotional space where they're ready to purchase. They might feel like they need more exposure to the market. They might feel like they need more properties to compare to. And in those situations, we're fully respectful if they're not emotionally ready. But that's another tip for buyers. I say, don't only get financially ready and everything else, it's really making sure that your head's in the right space to be able to make a move quickly, because if another property doesn't come up for another few weeks or even another 6 months that is as good as the first one, then not only will you perhaps regret not buying the first property, but you could be left behind if that market has grown since. You might not necessarily be able to afford that same property you could afford 6 months ago. So we just let people know that perhaps this might be the one that they could regret. If they're still prepared to walk away, we'll fully respect that, but we'll just make sure that they understand up front that, sorry, I just had the cat walk by, that sometimes the only difference between the right property in the first week and the right property in the 10th week is going to be the price.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. And that's, it's all about preparation. If with that whole fail to prepare and then prepare to fail type thing. So, and it sounds like you guys are putting all the hard work up front. So, I'm sure after watching today, a lot of our viewers are thinking, oh man, how can I take advantage of the services you provide? What's the best way for people to reach out to you and find out a little bit more on how you can help them out?
Well, jumping onto our website, that'll give them a lot of insight into the types of properties that we buy. There's a lot of media articles and contributions that we've contributed towards magazines and online blogs and TV shows on our website. And if people think that we could perhaps help them and they're aligned with the way that we work, then just giving us a call or shooting us an email anytime.
Great. And what's the best website for you? What's the name of your website?
katebakos.com.au. So that's CATEBAKOS.com.au.
Fantastic. Thanks, Amy, for your time today. I really appreciate it. I've learned a lot of things. I'm sure our viewers have learned a lot of things too. So again, thanks very much for your time.
Great. Thanks for your time as well.
This has been the Property Secrets Podcast with Darren Standish.